Okay. Thank you and welcome to the Guerrilla reading series. Before we get started, there is some information we'd like to share with you. Our reading will start in just a few minutes, so stay tuned. You're up, Lee.
I want to welcome everybody to spring season of the Guerrilla Lit reading series. We have three amazing readers for you tonight. I'm just going to jump right into it. Our first reader is Amanda Erin Miller. She is a Brooklyn-based writer and performer who earned her MFA in creative writing from the New School. Amanda's nonfiction, fiction, and poetry have appeared in The Rumpus, Free Range Nonfiction, PEN America's Temperature Check, COVID-19 Behind Bars, Sylvia Magazine, JewishFiction.net.
Attending a reading. Would you like to hear the literature?
Oh, somebody. Quarantine, Art and Isolation, Chortle, Cratelet, So Long, Short Memoirs of Loss and Remembrance, Underwired Magazine, and other publications. She's the co-editor of Words After Dark, a lyrics, lit and liquor anthology, and the author of One Breath, Then Another, a memoir. Since 2012, she's produced Lyrics, Lit and Liquor, an NYC literary and performance series. Amanda serves on the nonfiction committee for PEN American's Prison Writing Contest and has toured her solo shows to festivals in the US, Canada, and Scotland. Please give a warm welcome to Amanda Miller.
Thank you so much for that intro. Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you from Fortuna, California, in Redwood, on the Redwood Coast. I've got our anthology here, Words After Dark, a lyrics, lit, and liquor anthology. It's a collection of work by writers who have appeared in our series. I'm saying "our" because Amy on this reading is also part of this process. She's a co-editor and trivia writer for the series. And so I'm going to read to you from the two pieces that I have in the book. One is a short story and one is a poem. So I'm going to read the short story first. It's called The Open Mic. Dan's making jokes about his dick. "I'm gonna come all over your face," he yells, straddling the mic stand. I'm not sure if this is a punchline to a setup I missed or just something he yells when he feels nervous. I've only been half listening, sinking deeper into my seat, trying to disappear further and further into the dark so he can't see my disgust. God, why did I fuck him after last week's mic? Because of the booze. Because he praised my set. Because it seemed like he understood me in a way so few of these cliche comics ever do. If he had gone up on stage last Monday, there's no way I would have gone home with him. It's 7 p.m. The 10 other people in Hank's bar's tiny basement are drunk comedians, 9 dudes and 1 other woman, all slouched either on the lumpy stained couch against the back wall or in the once white plastic lawn chairs scattered across the sticky floor. I recognize most of them from last week, and the week before that, and the week before that. Everyone is sitting as far back as possible, 2 rows of empty chairs lined up in front. The door at the top of the stairs swings open so that the bar music gusts into the room before it's remuffled. 3 younger-looking guys and 1 girl descend, whispering and giggling to each other, their requisite 1-drink minimums in hand, mandatory for performers as well. They don't look sloppy or desperate enough to be comics. They must know someone going up tonight. Or they are drunk college students checking out the New York Dives. Those were the days. This mic is like a group therapy session, but the worst kind. The kind where everyone is a total egomaniac and no one is listening to anyone else. It's group therapy where everyone is actually obsessed with their dysfunction and wants to revel in it instead of trying to get well. When did comedy become about the public contemplation of suicide? I make it a rule to never talk about sex, heartbreak, or how much I hate myself. Though, of course, I think about all 3 constantly. These thoughts are the root cause of why I take uptown trains from Canal Street when I mean to go to Brooklyn, or walk into Walls, or drop my wallet on the tracks. Sex, heartbreak, and self-loathing are so obvious. I want to be more original than that to have at least a hair's worth of a shot at being noticed. Derek went up before Dan. Now he's picking up his beer and heading upstairs. I'm tempted to follow him and forget about my set. My jokes suddenly all strike me as dumb, incomplete, pretentious. Maybe a better use of my time would be to go home and work on them, or drink myself to sleep. Most of the dudes in here are just fiddling with their phones anyway. At least Dan can't see because the spotlight is so blinding. We can only be honest with people we can't see. That's showbiz. The host, Max, flashes Dan the light, indicating he has 1 minute to wrap it up. 1 more minute until I get to martyr myself. If I bomb, I'll have an excuse to get wasted and fuck another sad comic. Jesus, if I want drunk sex that bad, I should probably just go on Tinder. I don't need to put myself through this. So why do I? It's probably because I'm a masochist. It must have something to do with my childhood days back on the farm in Kentucky, some traumatic incident involving my dad and a cow udder. Dan finishes his last joke, and I give a courtesy laugh, applauding even though I have no idea what the hell he's been talking about. Max gets up and shakes Dan's hand, the 2 of them looking pretty pleased with themselves. They may as well be swapping semen. Thanks, Dan, says Max, close enough to the mic to make it squeak. Everyone jumps in their seats. At least they'll be awake for my set. The 3 youngsters cackle, marking the greatest laughter spell of the night. Max glances at the set list, scotch taped to the side wall. Next up, we have Miss Lauren Hauser! Give it up! Yells Max. There's a flurry of light applause, like no one wants to clap too hard for fear of hurting their hands. I could be doing so many other things right now, like applying to law school or the seminary, or petitioning a homeless man to finger me. Instead, I rise calmly and wade through the musty air to the mic, taking my place under the light. The light seems brighter than I remember. Maybe the rapture is coming. Hi, everyone, I hear myself say. That first sound in my voice projecting through the speakers gives me that familiar shot of self-importance that I know will leave as soon as I tell a joke that falls flat. And then the self-hatred will creep in, but I won't talk about it. I'll dutifully recite what I've prepared, knowing I can punish myself later on. Stand-up comedy might be the most unforgiving art form. Oh well. Fuck it. Here goes! Hi, I'm Lauren. So, I don't know about you guys, but I am exhausted. Like, in a way that goes so far beyond sleepy. In a way that makes me wonder if someone is putting horse tranquilizers in my food or roofing me on the daily. Last night I had a glass of wine at this bar, and I woke up in the middle of the night, passed out in my bathroom with my skirt over my head, covered in Cheetos, with no memory. Wait, now that I'm talking about it, I do recall coming home, smoking weed, and taking an Ambien. But I swear those Cheetos are still a mystery. Silence. They hate me. I can make a run for it. Nobody would come after me. Just flee up the stairs. But I keep going. So, people in England seem nice. That accent, it's so polite. I've seriously been thinking about moving there, but I just can't get up the nerve. Crickets. I hate myself. So yeah, England. That makes me think of Amy Winehouse, another celebrity who supposedly had it all and died of alcohol poisoning. Make some noise if dying of alcohol poisoning sounds romantic to you! Dan and Max hoot. Some other people laugh nervously. Yeah, I used to think so too, until my mom died of it. Just kidding, she's still alive. She's in a nursing home on Long Island, doesn't know who the hell I am, yells a lot for her mom, who's been dead for 2 decades. That's where we're all heading, so, you know, maybe it would be better to die of alcohol poisoning. More silence. This one more cavernous and painful than the last. I decide to join in. I want to see how long it can go on before someone breaks. The only sounds are faint noises through the door from the bar upstairs. Some people giggle nervously, but no one says anything. I feel the heat from the spotlight. I exhale into the microphone and hear my breath. More nervous laughter. Max starts to stand. I raise my palm to signify I am not done. He sits slowly. I conduct a 180-degree scan of the room. Since I'm in the light and they're in the dark, I'm responsible for what happens next. I could do anything right now. Scream, strip, pull out a hacksaw. I just continue to stare. My vision blurs. Someone coughs. Someone sets a glass on a table. Someone's feet hit the floor. Then, without warning, laughter bursts forth from my body like a baby entering the world. As if on cue, the whole basement responds with explosive pain in the belly guffaws. People are clutching their stomachs, the backs of their chairs, the shoulders of their neighbors. The laughing is interspersed with breath catching. I catch Dan and the college girl laughing while sucking face. The guy next to them wipes tears from his eyes and drops his iPhone. The screen cracks, but his chortles don't stop. The entire beer-bellied, ironic, t-shirted pack is slapping something. Knees, backs, chairs, tables, bottles, and glasses crash against the floor while everyone keeps making waves of that strange undulating sound, something like chimps mating while under attack. Gradually, the laughing gives way to giggling, which gives way to snickers, and finally, silence. Back to where we began. But this silence feels different. Comfortable, safe, satiated. We have all experienced the satisfaction of tension and release. No joke necessary. Once again, I'm Lauren Hauser, I say into the mic. Thank you. I step off the tiny termite-infested stage, lit from within, counting down the days until next week's mic. Thank you. So that's the end of that story. Woohoo! Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now I'm going to just read this poem, which is called God Talk. I teach in a Jewish community, and I teach young people a class called God Talk who are 11. So that's what this is about. Talking God with 11-year-olds. We sink into centuries of concepts illuminated by Jewish clergy, philosophers, mystics, scripture, slides curated by a cohort of Reconstructionist Jews who handpicked the most palatable perspectives for this PowerPoint. A God slow to anger, abounding in kindness, a God who shape-shifts and can appear in human form, a God who creates and controls but permits free will, a God who authors supernatural miracles, a God non-anthropomorphic beyond human comprehension. No mention of that narcissistic, insecure God, that God who terrorizes and destroys, though if the kids have had half an eye open, they should be well aware of him by now. The kids squint and giggle, doodle and shrug, peek at their phones, contort into pretzel shapes, sneaker laces dangling. What time is it? 6 p.m. Can I use the bathroom? You don't have to ask. God as mystical changing energy, God as a cosmic process, God as electricity, God as magnetism, God as love. A pause. Have you ever studied astronomy, I say? Have you ever considered the vastness of the universe? Doesn't it just blow your mind? They nod, straighten up, cock their heads to one side. Then it's 3, 2, 1, blast off. I'm talking cosmos and galaxies, scrolling through slides, reading this quote and that passage, presenting this image, that question, asking, why do you think so many people have been thinking about this for so many centuries in every culture across the globe? Thinking, ruminating, questioning, wondering, making up stories, scrawling down myths, trying to crack this nut, this mystery of existence, or at least produce a hairline fracture. I'm getting real passionate now, saying it's all just so crazy. Isn't this all just so crazy? Infinite space, birth and death, a time before we existed, a time we will no longer exist. Isn't it completely unfathomable? Doesn't it just blow your mind? This is why people can't stop talking about God. This is why. They're more alert now. Their eyes are all the way open. One girl raises her hand and says, there's got to be another planet in the universe like ours with humans like us who didn't make climate change. I say, yes, that could be true. I don't know. We don't know. Then we're out of time. Have a good week, I say, closing the laptop. They pack up and head home for dinner and homework. Some say, you too. Others just disappear. I glance at the empty chairs, throw on my jacket, pick up my bag, open the door into the 55-degree breeze. It was 90 yesterday. I've got whiplash from the weather. It's twilight in Brooklyn and I'm walking through the rain. The sky is a slate gray with a hint of blue, like a mixture of smoke and water or ash and water, like the Ganges. Sacred. I've written this word on the board several times, asked the kids if it's a word they recognize. Yes, they've said, pronouncing it scared. The rain is coming down harder now, and the sky has transferred its light to my chest. An electric current runs through the front of me. I want to drop down on my knees. I want my forehead to kiss the concrete. I want to feel the raindrops against my back like the tiny fingers of the child I may never have, to assure me that the creation of life is an act of divinity mirroring the creation of a star. But I don't drop down. Instead, I stay still, leaning my body against a brick building propped up by shadow. I can't stop the electricity. I want to run into the street, stop traffic, cars parting like the Red Sea as I throw myself down on the asphalt, knees tucked under my chest. Child's pose. Oh God, author of supernatural miracles, I want a miracle. I want the ground to swell and shake, crack and break. I want hot lava to shoot up through my fingers, and I want to see God's face in a pillar of smoke and cloud. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Our next reader is Amy Dupchek. She is the author of Dust Short Stories and the co-editor and designer of Words After Dark, a lyrics, lit, and liquor anthology. Her fiction and creative nonfiction have appeared in Entropy, Sonara Review, Phoebe, Hypertext, Fringe, Litro, and other literary journals, while her poetry has been featured in Passengers, District Lit, The Night Heron Barks, and Alternatives Field in Isolation anthology. She earned her MFA in fiction from the New School and acts as the fiction editor of Kajibi. Amy has been leading creative and essay writing workshops at Writopia Lab since 2012, working primarily with the teens and also with adults at the Writers Rock. Please welcome Amy.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. And I'm going to continue reading from this anthology that Amanda and I put together. So I'm going to read the two poems that I have in here. I'll start with that. It's going to be a bit of a medley of moving between different things. So we'll start here. Okay, this one's called Sold. I just learned that Kurt's sweater, the one he wore playing Bowie, Vaselines, that old Lead Belly tune that goes back further than Lead Belly, the one made of green mohair, limp orchids, and lithium, the one that reeks of mothballs, antacids, sweat from the shakes, the one scarred with cigarette burns, stains, one missing button like an animal's eye, the one that couldn't warm his bones even after 3 cups of tea, the one he wore exactly 26 years ago, only 4 months before swallowing too many Rohypnol, only 5 months before burning out like a star, sold at auction this week for $334 grand. I wonder where the winner will keep this new treasure, next to their own sweaters, on a mannequin with angel wings. Maybe they're lying in bed with it now, running their palms across its vintage skin, holding the coarse fabric close enough to hear the echoes of a cello and a Dupchek voice, wondering where you slept, wondering who sold you the world, and what gave you the right to own it. Also, this earbud repeatedly falls out. Give me a sec. Okay. For this next poem, I'm really into music, and I challenged myself to weave together the titles of post-rock bands, because I think a lot of post-rock bands have great names. So I tried to use their names throughout the poem, but just create its own, have it take its own form and narrative. So maybe if you know these bands, you'll recognize the names. Godspeed. If these trees could talk, they'd tell you that of all winged things, red sparrows have the worst neuroses, but at least they're kind. Not like those blue neck grackles whose haughty laughs crack the branches they colonize. Might as well have bony hands to wield forest swords, cause explosions in the sky. If these trees could reach any higher, they'd write codes in the clouds, warn latecomers seeking sanctuary, or call ISIS long distance. When the true beasts come, that ancient goddess won't protect, might say Godspeed and hope for the best, admitting defeat without any insurrection. Those days are gone. The trees don't know it, but God is an astronaut, not some apex or deity or world to ponder alone in the dark. God climbs the stratosphere on swells of carbon breath, claiming heaven for himself, and he doesn't need wings. Those things are for the living, mere beings that bottleneck and can't help reaching for a higher consciousness, much to their demise. What are trees but future holograms, tools for another day, vessels of innovation? This forest, Isis knows, will never become some silver Mount Zion, never be home to anything that doesn't intend to die. So I'm going to also read a poem that is unpublished, but it sort of continues that theme a little bit. It's called On Time And. Bathed in red, wearing an off-the-shoulder dress and drinking too many cherry bombs, Jenny invokes the time loaf again, which she falsely attributes to Einstein again. I correct her kindly, the way I did another night we were feeling metaphysical, when I tried to explain how time and speed cohabitate. Even now, she's reluctant to agree, though she's speaking and moving relative to me. Beneath the bar's red glare, Jenny resurrects her mother, consumed by a tumor 2 years past. In the time loaf, she tells me, our present is here and my mom's life stopped here. But if I slice the loaf this way, karate chopping into air, then we're both alive at the same time. My mother isn't really gone. I hold my tongue. It's her birthday after all, and she's downing sugary vodka and pop songs on the edge of 40. I see what you mean, I begin. You're saying that since time is an illusion relative to our spatial journeys, we can view it as nonlinear, cyclical, paradoxical to itself. Or perhaps you mean that in death, your mother escaped the space-time continuum, accelerating past photons beyond the light cone that contains our collective existence. Or she hitched a ride on a cosmic string, traveling through tunnels of quantum foam, the very fabric that stitches time and space in place. Or she swam past the breakers of an event horizon, emerging in the nucleus of a nebula to become a newborn star. Jenny looks displeased. This is not what she means. I do not understand the simple beauty of the loaf, baked to her taste, all galactic wheat. Perhaps she's right. I tend to overthink. At 22, I wrote a paper called I Have a Theory About a Theory, believing I understood the universe. Manic and sleepless, I drew its impossible shape, scrawling spirals over spirals in a spiral-bound notebook, digging hard into the page like I was trying to reach a universe inside it. If only I could dissolve into dark matter, surf the currents of our cosmic seas where time dilates eternity, I might find Jenny's mother, as well as my own dead. If only I could restring geometry for our non-Euclidean reality, distill the spacious present, swallow time like a rain-flick vitamin, wash it down with extrasolar water, as ancient as atoms. If only I could give Jenny what she really wants for her birthday, to go back to the start, her mother birthing her anew. But as it happens, she abandons her loaf, sick to her stomach. I hope her mother will find her kneeling in the bathroom. Hope she'll hold her small hand, fold her into a long embrace that can last for all time. And then, thank you. And then I'm gonna hop and skip right over to the first short piece in my collection, Dust, which came out in 2016. So this is like a standalone short piece that starts the collection, and it's called The Garden. Because even the garden took the first bite, we planted apples. We wanted to be close to sin, to invite it to live with us. It only seemed appropriate. Nothing in our lives had gone according to plan, yet there we were, two near strangers in an overgrown garden clutching apple seeds. Theo had stolen the seeds that morning, wandering into the nearest neighbor's barn half a mile away. We were unwilling to spend money if we didn't have to. He'd been searching for supplies when the seeds called out. We knew we were lucky to have found this place at all. We'd heard it was abandoned after its occupants died. Together, we decided not to feel guilty about pretending to be their orphan children come home to mourn. We were old enough to know better, yet young enough to exist in such a lie. Do you want to say some kind of prayer? Theo asked, looking down at the Eden we had claimed. I don't pray, I reminded him. He crouched and plunged his hand into the earth, creating a chasm the size of his fist. He started dropping the seeds one by one, a perfect hailstorm. Theo lingered, caressing the dirt, petting it, and touching the crown of his head as if he had buried someone he knew. I imagined the evil fanning out instantly. It would spread throughout the garden, infecting the tomatoes and spinach and whatever else our dead parents grew, until reaching the farmhouse where we would sleep. The evil would creep under the floorboards, snake into the plumbing, greet us in the morning as we washed. There, it would enter the tips of our fingers, invade our blood, and engulf our cells until we too had transformed. This is what we deserved. When Theo stood, his knees and palms were covered in soil. He turned toward me and smiled. It was this smile I had trailed for days like a famished fawn following its mother doe. I had confided in Theo that my life back home had nothing more to offer. I was his family now, no one else's. I was his Eve, or he was mine, and our apples would come. We would wait here, watching rain impregnate the earth, and by the time our apples bloomed, we would no longer be strangers. This is what I hoped. I prayed anyway, he whispered. What did you pray? I asked. Theo didn't answer. He simply walked through the garden and into the farmhouse. Before going inside, I decided to spread my prayer atop his like a second layer of skin, but I didn't know how people prayed. I tried to feel the seeds beneath my feet, grasping hold of the dirt, this patch of earth that held us in place. The evil was taking its first tiny breaths, the apples small as pinpricks. I could hear it. Because Eve was born of Adam's soil, we made love at dawn. The early light crept between our ribs, slick with sweat as they slid back and forth beneath the surface of skin. No one saw us, but I wanted to believe the garden was watching, or at least the ivy climbing the walls. It was our first time together, yet something about it felt final, as if there would be no need to resume this rhythm once it had stopped. I found myself surprised by the strength of Theo's hands, the quickness of his breath, and the soil caked beneath his nails. I thought, now I know him. Then I felt the urge to scream, but who besides Theo would receive the sound? The unborn apples might perk up, their new roots shaking with fear like the veins in Theo's hands. Those snake-like veins twitched as the blood inside them tunneled into mine. I could feel his heart sing out, old blood mixing with new. When we lay there spent, I wanted Theo's voice to fill the hollow space where his breaths had taken shape. He seemed more capable of words than me, the way he was more capable of decisions. He was the one who had freed me from the dirt and dust of my past, pushing me heart first into a future that did not allow a lifeboat. For this, I wanted to be grateful. But I also wanted to believe that I was not surrendering like so many women before my time. I was not simply relying on promises of light uttered half-heartedly by a man I hardly knew. In some ways, we were too young to be man and woman anyway. We were merely playing a game without rules. Together, we stared at the ceiling, becoming acquainted with its particular water stains. They seemed ever-changing, like clouds. First, a tooth, then a staircase. Soon, a ship with symmetrical wings, always a surprise. Maybe it'll rain today, he whispered. I'd like that, I replied. I imagined the tiniest storm raging over our precious hole in our garden, which he had closed up tight. I had to admit that the two of us might not make it to the time of apples. Perhaps we would cave and retreat, heads hung, to the wicked places we once called home, the places that held our ghosts. Perhaps the ghosts of this place, the ones that had made love on this very mattress, were poisoning our bones, or whatever parts of us hadn't already been poisoned. I wanted to ask Theo all sorts of questions, but only one escaped my lips. Was Eve really evil? For several minutes, he looked at me sideways, then left to check the garden. I went to the sink and offered myself to the water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. Our last reader of the night is Clifford Brooks. He is the founder of the Southern Collective Experience and the editor-in-chief of the Blue Mountain Review. He hosts Dante's Old South on NPR WUTC and This Business of Music and Poetry. He's written 3 books of poetry, The Draw of Broken Eyes and Whirling Metaphysics, Athena Departs, and Exiles of Eden. He currently travels the South writing his new collection, The Book of Old Gods. Please welcome Clifford.
Hey, y'all. It has been a long, long time since I've done something like this. And I want to thank all of you for coming out and y'all for putting this on. This is amazing. And I'm proud to be here. Thank you. The first poem I'm going to read is from an evening in downtown Athens, Georgia. And it's on a landscape that I think that I found a lot of my poetic voice. It's called We Heave Up Like the Night. It's snowing. Our reflections stained, captured in clean puddles. We came down tonight like resurrected clerics who followed Hypnos above city lights to skip time. Physics bends as we have seconds slow. Strangers are left to window shop. A Desdemona nocturne, the new LA woman. She's singing like Nina Simone. Sashaying conspiracy of lyrics and lace, the lady rattles my teeth. Who we were has been misplaced, and the sticky fusion fuels us and our need to be alone. So alive, compressed through my spine, she becomes home, candlelight, anguish, velvet midnight, the early morning hard love in the smallest mouth. Palms held out with threaded fingers. We hear the vapid mob. Dig it? Right on. Okay. The next one I'll read is called Blue Solo. And when I do these, I'm always like, I need to read some happy ones. Breakup poem, breakup poem, breakup poem. But they're not all bad, I promise. I will not make this journey a sad one. And this was called Blue Solo, so hang on tight. Bloodshot on a moon-hung highway. I wear my soul like a chore. This 67 solid Impala rolls with mellow wheels and hauls me home to Crawford. I can't seem to shake the line. Ain't nobody's fault but mine. I feel like a prophet with smoke in his eyes, seeing rhyme that burns like brimstone. It's the spell of her love letters on the back seat beneath John Lee Hooker's guitar. I am bewitched. I have come unstitched, and a rosary swings from the rearview mirror. Y'all, nighttime is a shade of day, and it passes. This isn't the Blues Cafe in Smyrna where I read John Agard poems while my last romance got a headstone. And sitting there was the first time I heard the line, ain't nobody's fault but mine. But this lady says she'll forgive me, inviting these bones back for safekeeping. Car grumbling, trembling apart, trees eat into my periphery. For months, This man has been a wasteland. I haven't shaved in 5 days, and a shower wouldn't kill me. So those were both from my first book, The Draw of Broken Eyes and Worldly Metaphysics. That's 2 in 1 because that is a hellaciously long title. So I'm not that egotistical yet. My mama is my best friend. And I wrote a poem about her. And this one has a sad tone to it, but it's what I hope to be redemptive. And it's called Promise to Mama. You told me Tuesday it was time to simmer for my heavy mind's sake. A son shouldn't be so good at making his mama's heart break. Now, I won't go saying just how I got lost because hell is listening for me to spill my secret. And don't go blaming bad luck because a restless soul is my undoing. I'm overdrawn at the bank of Legion due to the price of a few sinister seasons. So I sing spirituals and think of sermons I've missed. There's a debt to deal with from damage done to my wrists. Yet the scars ensure I don't misplace the memory of your undeserved sorrow. You won't weep in the rain again, Mama, and my veins will be clean tomorrow. Saint of a self-destructive son, you've instinctively let my hide slide. But I shall not. I cannot. For when I sit down with my misdeeds, it's obvious all I'm going to do is fall short of a picket fence, the wife of a quiet life, and you. I swear to God, I meant to be sweet. When I started out, I had my heart in the right place, and I got to the end, and I'm like, oh, okay. So, something happier. This one's called Song of Washington Fog, and it's about someone I cared for very much. Song of Washington Fog. She brings me spring with the whisper that sounds like the soft swoosh of a pinwheel's spin. It's then that her lower lip parts from its perfect upper half, and she brazenly bites mine. Young pixie, you are a luxury and the staple of a passionate life. Smart, svelte brunette, keep me. Stretch over my slender sides and stay. Stay, for the day does me no good without your tender fingers tapping me in time to taper bad dreams. Sugar, absent your affection, the dawn just ain't no sunrise. Let me check my time real quick. How am I doing? Oh, all right, then. Okay. This is a happier one. It's to one of my students, dedicated to Fahim Ali. And this poem is called The Lasting Melody Made of God. When our species decided to discover an accessible deity, one song was slung across an abyss we suspected was only dead space. What we uncovered was another culture, and together we articulated Earth's universal tongue. Still humming in uncommon notation, now it's our bloodless kinship. There's more beyond our mindscape than oblivion or bondage. You see, Genesis split the original gentle night with the mother of mornings. Our instincts naturally listened for chords that quailed chaos, not cause it. The facts are not far-fetched. Prayers progressed into psalms, and we grew from a fertile womb as gospels, standing upright. We resonated as the rhapsody of God's first words, which were, we are all kept safe in the old man's hands. Our darkest deeds are blown free like dandelion seeds in a gale. But in the event my concept of soul lacks enough evidence to earn your certainty, rely on reason, because the only theology worth knowing is none of this is meaningless. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll go back to my first one. The second one is called Athena Departs, Gospel of a Man Apart. We've all been in gas stations, or we were before the Rona. But as memory serves, when you're standing in line, sometimes that's the most irritating moment in your existence because you're typically late for work and somebody's buying $9,000 worth of lottery tickets in front of you, which I don't judge. I have somewhere to go. So I wrote a poem about it, and it is called Gas Station Purgatory. People drone into tiny phones. Their mouths are a ragged metal that clangs while I'm standing in line. I'm deaf to everything else but that clanging, clamoring in. Their ruckus is a jumble of nonsense pilfered from some relative or a friend or a TV show. Sartre is right about other people. But this gas station's necessary, and I'm stuck, strangled by lottery tickets, and the beef jerky looks lethal, and there's a rack of legal speed for the graveyard shift. That clanging is a test. Thank you. Let's see. I have one more. Sunday Chaconne. Chaconne is a musical device that Bach is known for using. And I adore him. And so the idea of having so much harmony in one place, I tried to apply to a single day where I was walking around downtown Atlanta. And this is how the day went. It's called Sunday Chaconne. Drinking absinthe outside the vortex, my friend buys lunch. Sinatra sings in a passing car as pink hair, street preachers, and we two lucid revelers step on the same sidewalk. Barely brushing the ground, traveling asphalt tributaries, trees thin, museums rise up, stone carves itself into forms. Graffiti blurs into an urban polyp. Shop windows warp our reflections. Atlanta concrete greets us. Her face, many faces. Skyscrapers lose us among anthropology students. Homeless, squatting with styrofoam cups don't accost us. We're happily ambivalent, oozing around eye contact, invisible, a speck in the sea of the city. Crowds hush, air shimmers. Pigeons burst upward. Thank you. Am I right to know that I got like 4.5 minutes left?
Yeah, read as many as you want, Clifford.
No, for real. Because it struck me like I timed it 15 minutes. I'm like, where did I see that? Was that actually the time? Am I going on too long? Are we good?
Yeah, no, you're good. You're
okay.
Good.
All right. This will be the last poem I'll read. It's called There Are Hours. And it's about coming to a comfortable place with my old man and some misconceptions I had about the heart. There are hours. This is havoc, a red splattered cheek, a change in sunlight. My stance is aloof, distracted, right foot dragging, watching my father limp with a fake hip. As a child, I picked up his pillbox, his money clip, that carnal eye. He shook me because of my coming broken heart. There is choice in the reality of bloodlines, of reoccurring men, of one wolf giving way to an animal, his brood, but sharper, better at being feral, a scourge. Pop's lectures were lost, incinerated on my spirit. He told me what cannot be released will stalk and mangle another life. Now I hold no rose in lakeside grasses. In my arms, there is no basket of intimacy unfulfilled. No scripture whispers in my twisted ear. How does a cloistered man with a gaping wound dismiss his bleeding, his gushing? In this labyrinth, I can't find the leading thread out. I am Minos and his gluttonous son. A lady gives me a volley of crushing anchors. Love is spindled only in one artery. Through churning valves, I allow a single set of platelets. This is a leak of what was, but never was, us. Stone is the softest aorta. I cannot go on eclipsed. I am more than that silver peaking. I'm the soothing ring behind what's lonely only because of stabbing fate. And right now, my pretty girl drives fast out of state. Enter melancholy cinders. I eat fists of pomegranate for more time in Hades and the quiet in the bowels beneath this constant barrage. Languishing among shadows, forgetting I will be no one. The trees, plantation songs, the goddamn morning glories flutter above me like looting butterflies whose wings move so loudly better sense screams in vain. In vain, those angels exhausted point away from sticks, begging, knowing I still hear them. I sing aloud, Salve Regina, I am me. I'm content to be marked a libertine, welcoming another messy orgasm as a swan to experienced virgins. New breasts avert the vision of one girl. Lord, run me from her. In a wheelbarrow, carry my clattering bones home to Lexington's empty church house. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clifford. I want to thank all of our readers, Clifford, Amy, and Amanda as well. So what we do now, because normally we're at Dixon Place and we're in person and we get a beer and we hang out and, you know, this is life right now. So we open it up to a Q&A with the audience. So either you could do this two ways. You could type a question and I'll read your question out to whoever you want to ask the question to. Or you could just go ahead and ask it. We'll see how chaotic that would be. And we'll just do that. We'll do it for a couple minutes if people have any pressing questions. Or I'll just go ahead and ask a question. So we've asked this a few times since we've been doing the Zoom meetings. You know, obviously, this year has been challenging for everybody. You know, it's challenging for writers. Writers rely on inspiration. How have you been affected? Do you find that you've had more inspiration because you've had more time to be able to maybe, you know, devote to your craft? Or do you find that it's hard to get that inspiration right now to work on a new piece? So I'll open that up to all our readers.
I think it's a little harder to find inspiration for me personally. It doesn't always, like the time that I have doesn't always correspond to how productive I am. So I find that sometimes when I have less time, I'm actually more productive in a weird way. There's this like, I don't know, this I gotta squeeze it in feeling.
It's like the idea of deadline almost. Like
yeah, exactly. So I find that it's better for revising and for editing. And harder for the creation of new work.
I feel like mine has been like fluctuating. And I mean, I write for page, but also for performing. And I found that like in the beginning pandemic times, I was very inspired to perform this character who's an old lady who was in quarantine, and then that was really kept me going for a while, and then I lost steam on that, and then I felt uninspired for a while, and then I started working on other projects, and like they've been just like it's been touch and go, you know. Sometimes it feels like okay, this is going to get me through, and then sometimes it feels like I have no energy for this. So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, to all of that. For me, the ability to sequester myself has been beneficial. Being able to kind of recreate and find why, remember why. I love doing this so much, and the material that's come from it is distinct from the rest of the stuff. I always worry about that the next book I write will sound like the last one, and I don't want people to have that kind of deja vu. You know, this has definitely brought out things that I've never thought and appreciated, gotten closer to my family and my parents. It's helped me reevaluate things.
That's good. So Clifford, we have a question from someone in the audience. Punky3M wanted to know what your last poem was about.
The last poem, There Are Hours.
And a follow-up question, are you going to write a book of poems as well?
Well, yes. I'm wrapping up one now, and I'm at that Proustian place where I'm so obsessive compulsive. I think it's just nerves of letting it out that I'm starting to move this. Come here, come here, come here. So yes, the next book is called The Book of Old Gods. The poem "There Are Hours." I was about 28, and I was in Athens, Georgia, with my daddy, and we were spending a great deal of time together. And I put down a lot of weight, and found a lot of love in that relationship. Still have it, and at the same time, he helped me get over a particularly brutal event in my life. And so the poem kind of, at its turn, goes from these reminiscences of my father and how he affected me now, some real advice he gave me, and how that helped me recover at the back half of the poem. So that's the really long answer for that question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any questions? I'm curious, what are you all reading right now, if you're inspired to read, or have you read anything over the last year that's really stood out to you that you could recommend to the audience if they're looking to pick up either, you know, book of poems or fiction or nonfiction?
I read Crime and Punishment.
Nice.
That's a good one.
Which was, yeah, very good for this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read both of Sally Rooney's novels.
Those are so good.
Which really got in my head. And were really good. And I'm reading right now a book called How Should a Person Be? And I just was like, yeah, that's a good title. No. And it's very meta and moves between like nonfiction and a play and transcription. And it speaks about the creative artistic process along the way. So it's interesting to read. I'm
like knee deep in the St. Vincent Millay's work. Every time I read that, I'll come back to her.
Say who that is again, Clifford?
Edna St. Vincent Millay.
Edna St. Vincent. Okay.
Yeah. She's transformative. And then recently got Scars and Flower by Lee Herrick, and a self-help book I picked up is How Dante Can Save Your Life. It's actually really good. It's good. I highly recommend it. It's helped me through this time.
Nice.
I also read How Fires End by Marco.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
It was so good. Please read it.
Thank you.
So unless anybody has any other questions, maybe we'll call it a night. Again, I want to thank all of our wonderful readers for coming out, sharing their work with us. We will be back. Oh, there we go. We will be back April 28th and May 26th. Please stay tuned for announcements about our next shows, and be well, stay strong, and good night from Dixon Place.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.